We must not allow individuals to donate to political parties. Wealthy individuals, of course, have more disposable income, whereas poor citizens do not, and they will not donate money because they need necessities, whereas wealthy individuals can donate a lot of money to political parties, and this compromises the integrity of political parties. Wealthy interests also, because they have more wealth, have more on the line. They have more to gain from manipulating the political process and from manipulating politics. Even though poorer citizens actually have a lot more to gain if policies could be passed that favor their interests. Even if individual donations are kept quite low, this still favors wealthy interests because one donation could equate to hundreds or thousands of votes if we use public financing attached to votes. Allowing individual donations gives wealthy interests a louder voice because political parties are going to listen to them more. Another serious problem is that when we allow individual donations, it causes political parties to pivot to pursuing donations. And this takes time and focus away from them doing their job. So for example, when we allow individual donations, it's in the interests of political parties, and there's a lot of pressure to seek out those donations because your competitor political parties or competitor candidates are going to be seeking out donations if everyone's allowed to. What this means is that rather than looking at legislation, developing better policy platforms, etc., political parties and candidates are going to be spending time on the phone, and who are they going to be calling? People who they think can donate, and those are wealthy interests. Now, the political parties that have policy platforms favoring wealthy interests are going to find it easier to collect donations because it's in the interests of the wealthier donors to fund political parties that will, for example, give wealthy citizens tax breaks or advantages for their businesses or any number of other changes that are in favor of wealthy interests. So by allowing individual donations, political parties have to spend more time trying to collect those donations because if they don't, their competitors will, and money determines who has more advertising, who has more resources to chase voters in elections. So allowing individual donations is a problem because without even trying, wealthier citizens will have political parties listening to them more carefully because it's in the interest of political parties to tailor their policy platforms around the interests of wealthy individuals. Okay, let's hypothetically imagine that we are able to ban corporate donations and support to political parties. We're able to ban individual donations to political parties. And the only form of money that political parties can receive is in the form of membership fees and in the form of public financing where each vote comes with a small amount of money. Under those circumstances, what do you think is going to happen? What I think is going to happen is the membership for political parties is going to skyrocket because it will be the only other source of income that political parties can obtain other than the votes. And so if you're a political party and you're used to accepting a lot of money from wealthy donors or corporate donors, and that's gone now, one way you could get around that would be to make your political party membership very expensive. And this would allow you to funnel money in from your wealthy corporate donors to the political party as a membership fee. So we're going to have to limit how much political party memberships can cost. The solution is to regulate party memberships to, in my opinion, a percentage of the median income. So for example, the maximum allowable party membership fee should become a percentage of the median pre-tax income. And this percentage must be quite low so that it does not give wealthy interests an advantage. My proposal is that the maximum amount that any political party can charge as an annual fee for membership to the political party is 0.001% of the median pre-tax income. You can figure out what this would mean in your country, in your currency, but it's a nice low amount. And it's actually in line with what most political parties can roughly charge or do roughly charge now. This maximum membership fee must be defined in the Constitution so that it's hard to change. Because if it's only passed in law, that law will get disregarded very quickly or surpassed, and we'll be back to where we started, where wealthy corporate interests are paying a lot of money to political parties through their membership fees. It's also very important that we use the median income and not the average or mean income. The reason for this is if you had a very unequal distribution of income where you had 1 or 2 billionaires and everybody else was dirt poor, the average would still be quite high, and then the only people who could afford to pay for party memberships would be the wealthy. So, very important must be the median income. Limiting the amount that political parties can charge for their memberships favors parties that have very broad appeal, i.e., parties that are trying to help the majority. Having party memberships that can be very, very high will favor having a political party that's funded by a few very wealthy members. Another part of the solution is that we cannot permit individuals to self-fund their own political parties or election campaigns. Once again, the reason for this is very simple. It will favor and does favor wealthy individuals. It gives rich people an unfair advantage, and one of the principles of democracy is roughly having a level playing field. Everyone must use the same campaign financing and political financing systems available. Public financing through collecting votes and small membership fees that are based on a percentage of the median income. We talked last time about parties that have not competed in an election before and how they can collect signatures in their electoral districts to access public financing. We cannot permit wealthy individuals to use their financial and other assets to support their election campaigns and to benefit their political parties. For example, they cannot pay for their own travel and accommodation expenses while on the campaign trail. They cannot use money to pay for advertising or promotional materials or pay for staff. Everyone who seeks political office must play by the same rules and access money in the same way. Of course, some advantages for wealthy individuals are unavoidable. For example, they can probably take time off work, or maybe they don't work at all because they're so wealthy. Poor candidates can't do this. They probably have to keep working. Wealthy candidates can hire domestic help to free up their time, whereas poor candidates cannot. So of course, there's going to be a lot of advantages that wealthy candidates have, but we cannot let them use any of their resources to directly benefit their campaigns or political parties. We cannot allow these various advantages to be compounded by having wealthy individuals fund or support their campaigns and parties. The final piece of the puzzle is, what do you do for parties and candidates and individuals and corporations that don't follow these rules, that go against the bans on donations or supporting campaigns? What do we do? There are a couple of things. Obviously, there's going to be penalties. But if we don't make those penalties adjusted for levels of income and or levels of wealth, then they're going to be very much slap on the wrist for wealthy people. Punishments must be very severe for political parties that accept money from corporations and wealthy individuals. Punishments must be also very severe for individuals and corporations that attempt to give money to political parties. Fines must rise with the wealth of the offending organization or individual. And for corporations, the fine amount must be based on the total asset value of the entire corporate family, all subsidies, all holding companies, everything in one bundle. The reason for this is very simple. Corporations will create a small company and put the money in there and use that to donate and hope that the fine only applies to that organization. And this will be a way of sheltering the wider organization from potential fines. So we must not allow that to happen. And any fine must be based on the total assets of the whole corporate family. Similarly, for individuals, we must base the fine on the total assets of that individual across all asset categories and across the whole world. Now, of course, there may be corporations and individuals that are very good at hiding their assets, or genuinely don't have any and are just trying to corrupt the election. If there are no assets and no wealth for a corporation or individual, then we must use a fine based on the value of their income. So once again, this is adjusted for higher income individuals so that their fines are similarly harsh as someone with a low income. It's a percentage of their income or a percentage of their wealth. Something else that's very important is that the fines must increase with repeat offenses. For example, the first fine could be 12.5% of wealth or income, whichever is higher. And then it must double for every successive offense. What this means is that it will take 3 strikes before the 4th strike takes everything. And this is quite harsh, but it's meant to be. So if the first offense is 12.5, double that. The second offense is 25, double that. The third is 50% of wealth or income. And if they try a fourth time to donate money to a political party, then the fine is 100% of wealth or income, whichever is higher. Corrupting the democratic process should be a serious crime. Remember, donating to political parties is corruption. Worse, it's corruption of public decision-making. This is and should be akin to treason. We must think of people who try to corrupt the democratic process as traitors, because they are. They're trying to manipulate public affairs for their own private gain. And the laws that protect our democratic process must be similarly robust as the laws we might enact to counter terrorism. So that means making it very difficult for individuals and corporations to hide their assets and their income. We have to imagine that repeat offenders that have already committed to attempting to manipulate the political process 3 times are probably going to keep trying. So we need, on the 4th attempt, to be able to have laws that take everything to cripple their future attempts. Because honestly, if someone hasn't learned committing a crime 3 times, they're not going to learn probably. And we need to disable their ability to manipulate public decision making. This is quite a harsh stance to take, but if we consider the damage that's being done to all of us, collectively and individually, by allowing the continued corruption of our political processes through corporate donations, through individual donations, and all the incentive structures that this sets up, I think that these rather harsh punishments are worth it and they are warranted.